We are.
Good morning, everyone. So shall I get started then? I guess that's a yes. So I'm going to go ahead and so I have I'm trying to do screen sharing. It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Oh,
Can we
Hold on,
get
let me
that
see.
maybe adjusted?
yes, I can do that. Should be you should be host. Let's see.
I have two screens, by the way. So it would
Oh,
be
you
the
know what? I
one.
think I made host with the one with your picture. Let me take I'm gonna reclaim host and then give it to your other one.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you, by the way.
Some people host.
See, I do it with two, so that way I can see you kind of like, you're seeing me, but then I can also have another one that I can do some screen sharing.
Okay.
Which, by the way, is working. There we go. I got it. Whoopsie daisy. Okay, this one. I think that's one. Oops. Well, good morning, everyone. As John mentioned, my name is Del Green. I'm a past district governor from District 5000. I was governor in 2015-16, which is a little ways a while ago, and I'm currently the DRFCC, which stands for District Rotary Foundation Committee Chair. It's kind of a mouthful. It took me a while to kind of get used to that. So as a DRCC, that makes me the district chair for the foundation for a 3-year term. Today, we want to talk about the foundation. So at the beginning of this Rotary year, current Rotary International President Jennifer Jones encouraged us to imagine. She encouraged us to dream. And so today we're going to talk about the foundation because it's through the foundation that we can make dreams realities. So Rotary International has adopted an action plan. The action plan includes a vision statement. Our vision statement says, together we see a world where people unite, take action, and create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. To implement the action plan includes 4 strategic priorities. And so this morning, what we're going to do is we're going to discuss the first priority, which is increasing our impact. This priority includes eradicating polio and leveraging the legacy and improving the ability to achieve impact or long-lasting positive change through the foundation. So the foundation was a vision of past Rotary International President Arch Klump, who in 1917 at his outgoing international convention proposed the idea of a foundation for the purpose of doing good in the world. The mission of our foundation is to enable Rotarians to advance world understanding and goodwill and peace through the improvement of health and the support of education and the alleviation of poverty. It's through the foundation that for as little as 60 cents, a child can be protected from polio. For $50 only, we can provide clean water to help fight waterborne diseases. $500 can help us launch an anti-bullying campaign and create an environment for safety for children in Hawaii and around the world. So how do we do this? Well, we can do this through grants. We have 4 primary types of grants. I think this club has participated certainly in district grants. Thank you very much for doing that. I believe you probably also participated in global grants. I'm not sure if you've participated in disaster response grants, and those are grants that are available to districts to help support disasters. It could be natural disasters. For example, if we had a hurricane in Hawaii, we can apply for a grant for a maximum amount of $25,000, subject, of course, availability of funds, to launch a project here to help the recovery effort. The Rotary International, for example, has also recently, of course, used disaster response grants to respond to events like, for example, the war in Ukraine, where last year, District 5000, for example, participated in 2 grants, actually. One was for $125,000, where we helped to buy an ambulance in Ukraine and some other supplies, and then also a $500,000 grant that provided additional medical supplies and also winter gear in Ukraine. Those both happened in the fall of last year. We have a relatively new program. It's called Programs of Scale. This is a competitive grant where a district or a club like the Rotary Club Lahaina Sunrise could vie for a $2 million grant for a project that is scalable. So if you had, for example, a successful project that you found to be something that might be replicated maybe elsewhere in Hawaii, elsewhere in the United States, elsewhere around the world, the Rotary Club Lahaina Sunrise would be able to vie for a $2 million grant to be able to do something like that. When we do our grants have to fall within one of our areas of focus. Up until basically this past year, we had 6, we now have 7. These are our areas of focus, and we need to, when we do a grant, the project that is, has to fit within one of these areas of focus. And it's not very difficult because they're pretty broad, actually, especially with the inclusion of the environment. So we have the environment, which I think when you do your projects in Lahaina, I'm sure there's probably an environmental component, makes it pretty easy. Community economic development, we've got basic education and literacy when you're supporting, like maybe a third school, for example, maternity and child health, water, sanitation, hygiene, disease prevention and treatment, and peace building and conflict prevention, for example, if you had an anti-bullying program. So we liken the foundation to a membership benefit, and it's through this membership benefit that we get to do these wonderful things. So, for example, as a membership benefit, as being members of Rotary International and contributing to the foundation, we have the ability to participate in district grants, which help our local communities. We also have opportunities to participate in global grants. Global grants are grants that might have an international component to them, and they generally have a larger impact. It's also important to recognize that with respect to district grants, not only they're available to help us do things locally in Lahaina, but we can also use those monies to do things on an international scale. And I liken it to a membership benefit because it's kind of like a 401k program that you might have wherever it is you work. Like a 401k program, it's an opportunity that's available to you as an employee, but it's also incumbent upon us as employees wherever we work to fund that 401k to be able to do the good that it's going to be able to do in the case of 401k when we retire, in the case of the foundation right now. This is a portion of our district grant application for this Rotary year. Through the generosity of your club and other clubs around District 5000, we had available to us 81,000 and change for DDF, district designated funds. Your club, the Rotary Club Lahaina Sunrise, participated in this and received a DDF grant, a district grant, to help sponsor a health and wellness fair. So I want to thank you for doing that. This is an example of your contributions doing good in the world, and in particular on Maui, which I think is very important. How do we support the foundation? Well, there are 4 basic types of ways we do that. One is through the annual fund. These are contributions that we make currently. These are the ones that go through the share program. We'll talk about a little bit more, but basically what it is we make these contributions today. Those monies are used by Rotary Foundation over a 3-year period. The corpus then comes back to the district. The district then allocates those monies however the district wants, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. The second one is a little bit similar, but quite a bit different, and that's the polio fund. That's also present dollars, but rather than being used by Rotary for a 3-year period and coming back to the district, those monies are basically used immediately in the fight against polio. The third opportunity is an endowment fund. The endowment fund is, we can actually fund it with present dollars. You can write a check today, for example, and make a gift to the foundation. Or what a lot of people do is that we might write the foundation into our estate planning opportunities. And so that's kind of, people jokingly kind of say that it's a check that doesn't get cashed until when you mock it, I guess. And then the fourth one are for specific causes. This is, for example, disaster response grants. Say, for example, there was a disaster that hit Hawaii, or maybe in the West Coast when we're having fires, people were giving to that specific cause. With Ukraine, we had people giving specifically for that particular cause. With the earthquakes in Turkey and Syria, people were giving for that specific cause. Or you can give to, for example, an area of focus. If you wanted to give specifically to an area of focus, you could do that. So those are the basic types of gifts that we have. I want to talk a little bit about the share system because I think it's really important and bears repeating for those who maybe heard this presentation before. But with the share system, if we designate share, and when we make our gifts, if we designate share, and we should remember to do that, those are the monies, if we give to the annual fund, that come back after 3 years. When we do it with the endowment fund, we should again mark share. We don't have to, but we would strongly encourage Rotarians and District 5000 to do that, so that when those gifts are realized, those earnings then end up coming back to the district in the form of DDF that can be spent here in Hawaii as opposed to at the will of the foundation, which is okay. That's good too, because giving is always good, however you give and wherever you give. And what happens under the share program is that those monies are then split between the World Fund, which is used for the global grants, and district designated funds, which are used for both district grants and the global grants as well. Now, one of the things that's a little bit different over the last maybe 2 or 3 years is that we used to come back 100%. Now, because the investments at the international level haven't been what they had been in years past, the foundation now takes off 5% operating fee, so we get 95% of that, which is still very good. And because of the way the foundation is operated, the foundation consistently achieves a 4-star rating from Charity Navigator, which is the organization that rates charitable organizations around the United States. So we've been very consistent in that. This is a very busy slide. This is the foundation in a nutshell. We have on the left-hand side Rotarians who contribute. We have these various things that we can give to, for example, Polio Plus, the annual fund, endowment, global grants. As mentioned, when you give to Polio Plus, those monies go immediately into the fight against polio. When we give to the annual fund, those funds are then invested for 3 years at Rotary International, then they become split up into DDF and World Fund monies. The endowment is a little bit different because once that gift is realized, and of course nothing happens until the gift is realized, it's just basically a promise. But once it's realized, the foundation gift is funded, that those monies then get invested, and it's the investment earnings that end up coming back to the district. And then we can give again to global grants or what have you, and those monies go directly to, for example, the projects if you have a global grant project that you're supporting. Hopefully it's no surprise that we're still in the fight in polio through the foundation. So we encourage giving. We have different ways to support that. We'll talk about that in just a bit. Actually, I think Maui has been very good in being able to support polio through becoming Polio Society members and the like. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has continued its promise. And so every dollar that we give is matched 2 to 1. And so there's a great multiplier effect. So it helps us to support the fight against polio. One of the relatively new things that has occurred is that we now have a named endowment fund that has been written into our district's foundation policy manual. Up until recently, what happened when we gave to the made endowment gifts, when those excuse me, gifts were realized, when those gifts were realized and they began generating monies, those monies come back to the district in the form of DDF. But those monies aren't allocated to specific clubs. As hopefully you have all heard, one of the things we do that's unique in Hawaii is that we have a policy that has now been written into the policy manual. Up until now, it's been an unwritten policy. Well, we have a policy where the monies that the Rotarians at the Rotary Club of Lahaina Sunrise, when they give those monies, that those monies then go back to the club. That's not the way it works around the world, or even around the United States, even around our zone. In most other parts of the Rotary world, the DDF that comes back gets spent by the district governor, in essence. The district governor gets to decide what his or her pet projects are, and is able to use a DDF that's spun out from the contributions by the Rotarians in their districts as he or she sees fit. In District 5000, we have a different model. We believe that those monies should go back to the clubs that made those contributions. So what we have done is we have traditionally, and now in writing, adopted a policy where the monies that the Rotarians in the clubs give, those monies then go back to the clubs for the clubs to decide how to spend them. Like, for example, your health project that the Rotary Club of Lahaina Sunrise has done. We did not have that for the endowment fund. So when endowed funds generate DDF, that DDF comes back to the district. Now, those monies do get spent in a very positive way. What happens, just kind of let you behind the screen a little bit, is that at the beginning of the Rotary year, the district governor and a committee that would include, for example, myself, meets, and we come up with a spending plan. And all of this is in our district policy manual. Although if you're like me, you probably didn't read or haven't read the policy manual until you really needed to. At least that's how it was in my case. So it was a learning experience for me. But there's a spending plan meeting that occurs, and at that meeting the governor decides with the committee how much money is going to be allocated to DDF and how much money is going to be allocated for global grant projects. And the reason is that Rotary International allows the governor and this planning committee to allocate up to 50%. So the club, Rotary doesn't mandate that any of it actually go to district grants. But in Hawaii, we do traditionally allocate the maximum, which is 50%. That's why those numbers kind of come out. But it's not a requirement, but it's something we have traditionally done. In addition to that, there's the governor is encouraged to make certain contributions. For example, there's constantly at least for the time being, a request, not a requirement, but a request that the district support polio, for example. And there's a prescribed contribution for that the district support the peace centers, for example, and other things. We, up until recently, had a lot of what we call rollover DDF, monies that were in the bank and weren't spent. For example, when I was district governor, we didn't spend a lot of money on different projects like that. We kind of saved in my mind, it was a rainy day fund. The attitude has sort of changed over the years, and the current thinking is that we shouldn't be sitting on these monies, we should be spending them. And so in years subsequent to my governor year, we started doing projects like going to Bali, and that grant just closed actually about 2-3 weeks ago. So I told you how long some of these projects take to close. We've gone to different places to do these different projects. Those money, so now the rollover DDF has been exhausted, or all close to being exhausted. It'll be exhausted actually in Ted Fagel's, our president nominee, Ted Fagel's year. So we're very fortunate that we have certain endowments that will continue to spin off DDF that the district will then be able to use to be able to allocate to support polio, to support the peace centers and whatever. But we like the idea of giving clubs ability to designate where these monies go. If, say, for example, a Rotarian in the Rotary Club of Lahaina Sunrise wanted to make a $25,000 outright gift or a planned gift when that gift is realized, and would like the DDF for that endowed gift to be treated very much like the monies that are treated from contributions to the annual fund, and go back to the Rotary Club of Lahaina Sunrise, we have amended the policy manual so that will occur. So that's kind of a long explanation that includes a lot of things about how the workings of the foundation, and then our spending ideas and policies, and then also a new change. But if you have more questions, or if you have any questions about that, go ahead and ask me. That's kind of a long explanation. I apologize. But how do we give? Well, there are lots of really fun ways we can give. We can give through Rotary Direct. This is where we do the online giving, which is pretty painless. You can go ahead and go online. It's one of my favorites, actually, where you can designate that a certain amount of money is taken out of your credit card on whatever basis you want. In my case, I do it monthly. You don't have to do it monthly. You can do it annually or however often you want to. But it's a nice way to say, for example, if you want to achieve certain giving objectives in a relatively painless way, because at least in my situation, I tend not to notice effect them. These little gifts are being made so that lo and behold, at the end of the year, I've made whatever gift I want to make. We can do it as a one-time shot by just simply going online to my Rotary. We can write a check to our club Rotary Foundation chair. Do we have a chair in this club, by the way?
Yes.
I looked online. Okay, I looked online and I didn't see someone's name. Otherwise, I would have put that person's name here. Or we can just mail a check directly to the foundation. We can do memorials and tributes, and we can also do the named endowed fund contributions that we talked about just a little while ago. And those monies are well spent. We also have the ability to give to specific causes. This is a screenshot from an email that I got probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago, right after, well, that's about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And so this one, as you can see, is targeted to Ukraine and then flooding in Pakistan. When we give, we have a lot of different recognition levels that we have. A sustaining member, for example, if somebody gives $100 a year. We have Paul Harris Fellows, and those are people who have given cumulatively $1,000 over whatever period of time. That is probably a pretty significant achievement, I think. We have Paul Harris Society members, and these are people who give $1,000 a year. We have White House Society members. These are people who have given $5,000 in one Rotary year. It doesn't have to be all at once, but it does have to be in one Rotary year. Major donors are those who've given $10,000 or more cumulatively. Polio Plus Society members, this is $100 a year and a pledge to continue doing that. Benefactors, this is an endowment fund gift. This is somebody who's given a pledge, either an outright gift in the endowment fund, or it could be a pledge of $1,000. Bequest is $10,000, and Arch Clump is $250,000. We have our Triple Crown donors, and these are people who have basically achieved 3 different designations. And if you do these things, you then become a Triple Crown donor. So this is somebody who is, number one, a major donor, so they've given $10,000 or more. They are a Paul Harris Society member, so they give $1,000 annually. And they are also Bequest Society members, so they've given $10,000 or more, either as an outright gift or maybe as a part of their planning. One of the things that we want to do in District 5000 is that we really, well, at least in my case, I value everything that everybody gives. And I think that it's important to recognize the fact that people give what they can. And not all of us are able to give at these very high levels, or levels that I think are pretty high. So what we have is what we call, at least for the time being, and I will throw this out to the group if you can help me come up with a better name. I'd be willing to consider that, but for now we're calling it a TRF supporter, somebody who supports the foundation. And the idea is to create good giving habits. And so this is somebody who, they might not be a major donor or Bequest Society member or what have you, but they can be a sustaining member. And that sustaining member is somebody who contributes $100 or more in a year. And to me, that is significant. They're also a benefactor. So rather than being a Bequest Society member, $10,000, maybe it's somebody who is starting out in their career or what have you, and they can give $1,000 or more. And lastly, they're also Polio Plus Society. So they're contributing $100 or more per year to the Polio Fund. So these are the 3 basic funds that we had: the annual fund, the endowment fund, and then Polio Plus. And so we'd like to be able to recognize people who do these kinds of things. Within clubs, we have lots of different types of recognitions. 100% Paul Harris fellow clubs, society clubs, E-Ray clubs, 100% foundation giving clubs, promise clubs, and what have you. There was an interesting statistic that Barry Rassin shared with us recently at the International Assembly that occurred, just last month, actually, in Orlando, Florida. The International Assembly is the final training for the incoming governors. And so this was incoming incoming governor, Mark Merriam's final training. And so Barry Rassin shared that 68% of Rotarians around the world don't give. And that really is a crying shame, because if everybody gave something, we would be able to achieve our goals. The United States, of course, is one of the, and certainly District 5000 is one of the leaders in the world. So we do now have a goal to have every Rotarian around the world give at least $25. But if everybody gave at least 25,000, or excuse me, $25, there's a good likelihood that on a per capita basis that club could become an E-rate club. We do have Charity Navigator, and I think I mentioned that earlier. The foundation has consistently achieved its highest star rating, 4 stars. Okay, this is a bad slide because I did not update it. Okay, this is probably, well, this is a very current slide. This is the fundraising analysis for the Rotary Club of Lahaina Sunrise. And this is an incomplete snapshot, I'd say, because we're only halfway through the year. So we have a lot of year left to be able to achieve our goals. But you can see, so this is kind of a busy slide. We have annual fund goals here, annual contributions here, total contributions here. So why don't we go ahead and we'll just break that up. And what I've done is I've taken some of that information so we take a closer look at it, so it's not so much a reading exercise or an eye chart. We can see that in 2018, that was our highest goal year. But of course, after that, we ended up with a pandemic, and for very obvious reasons, I think we had to understandably scale back. And I think we've come up with some more modest goals, but I think hopefully very achievable goals, which I think are good. In terms of annual fund contributions, and actually it was during the beginning of the pandemic that the Rotary Club of Lahaina Sunrise actually gave some of the largest numbers that it's given over a 5-year period of time, which I think is pretty impressive. And in terms of per capita giving, last year, or actually 2 years ago in 2020, when basically a year after we gave our highest numbers, our highest per capita numbers were achieved as well. So it's kind of an interesting graph because we can kind of see how we did before the pandemic, how we did during the pandemic, and then kind of, I'd say probably maybe a more cautious outlook on things. But I would encourage you to continue giving. We've certainly been able to give in the past, and hopefully we'll be able to continue supporting the foundation and the projects that the club is able to do in Lahaina. And who doesn't like a party? This week, how timely is it to have this particular presentation? This week, we have a series of, well, actually, it's going to be next week for you all, but this week for us here on Oahu, we have some special guests who are coming to Hawaii from the mainland. We have from Rotary International, we have our Major Gifts Officer, John Teish. John currently lives, I think, in San Diego. He's here on Oahu. In fact, in about an hour, I'm going to go and meet with him for coffee to talk about the foundation. We also have coming from the mainland, from California, Shirley Grace, who's also been to Hawaii in the past, but she's a wonderful individual. She, I think, has a cousin who lives on Maui, and she's a past district governor who is very inspirational. When I was going through my governor training, she was one of my trainers, and so I have a great deal of aloha for her. If you haven't already signed up for this event, I would encourage you to consider doing it. It's going to be on the 27th. I think on, so that's Monday, next week, Monday. On Sunday, I think my dear friend, Joanne Laird, is arranging a whale watch. So if you want to maybe get out and get a chance to meet some of these people earlier, that'd be a wonderful opportunity to do that. I think that you'll enjoy both John and Shirley. They're very wonderful people. And with that, I guess that's what I have to say. So I want to, in closing, I want to just encourage you to imagine Rotary and to do all that you can, because So I'm going to do a stop screen sharing, and did that work? That worked. Okay. So
Yes.
aloha.
Aloha, thank you.
If there are questions, maybe I can field those. I'm not sure if I ran on too long.
No, thank you. And then if we can't hear, I will relay the questions to you, Del, so you can hear it if you can't hear. So.
Okay.
That's a question.
Yes, sir.
And I'm just gonna ask, it's not really specific to your district, but is there a way, I mean, I know there's a program where for Paul Harris fellowships through the foundation, there's a way that the club and the members can participate together. So instead of doing $1,000, it's like a $500
Okay,
member, for instance, and it's like a credit system or something.
that's a good question. Yes, I think this question's about, Del, about if you contribute some money, the club has some, can also match that as well, right? Yes.
So what we're talking about are recognition points, which are kind of unique. And that's absolutely correct. It's one of the things that's unique to Paul Harris Fellows is that when the club gives, or actually when you give as an individual Rotarian, dollar for dollar, you get what's called a recognition point. And that's a recognition. And with a recognition point, you can give that to somebody else so that they can be bestowed a Paul Harris Fellow. And so, for example, I have a ton of recognition, well, not a ton, but more than I need. I can't use them for myself. I'm a major donor ×2. So I've amassed a few recognition points, and every now and again, I will donate them to, for example, there might be somebody in our community that I think we'd like as a club, in my club, we'd like to recognize because they've done something we think is significant, or for whatever the reason is, I'll use my recognition points to do just that. And so keep that in mind. When I achieved my first Paul Harris, I didn't do it 100% with my own money. I was a relatively new Rotarian and a relatively young person, and didn't quite understand the foundation. So I gave a little bit, but I was incentivized by the fact that the club was going to give me a few, match me basically dollar for dollar. And so it was that system that allowed me to achieve my first Paul Harris Fellow. And so keep that in mind, because you might have, as a club, a bunch of points, and you might use that to incentivize the people in your club to maybe give to achieve that recognition. Now, recognize that when we do that, those points don't count towards being a major donor, because a major donor is dollar for dollar. But the Paul Harris Fellow recognition is very important. And so I would encourage the club to maybe consider creative ways to use those points rather than letting them go to waste or rotting on the vine or what have you. So thank you for that question. That was a very good question.
Sure. And just to reiterate, the club has points, and each individual has points as well, right? So and that shows up on the foundation report. Okay.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thanks. Any other questions? No, oh yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ann.
There's an organization called Join One Love. That's
Okay.
speak up. Saddened by the amount of young girls that I have come across that are thinking walking in
Mhm.
Education done in school community. It was initiated at someone in the developed there still by that. Is there any way that we can partner?
Yeah.
Money here for, you know, having
Okay, Annie there's an organization that helps educate young people on healthy and unhealthy relationships. And she wanted to know how we would be able to be able to support them through the foundation giving. Can we add them? Could that be a district grant, or is that how would that work?
Is this a local organization?
It's a
On
local,
Maui?
it's on the mainland.
It's on the mainland.
I'd like to have a local work.
You'd like to be able to set up a local branch.
Counselors to the kids,
Uh-huh.
you know, consulting those levels and be able to operate here as a resort in the community. You know.
It would be nice. She would like to have a local version of this
Mhm.
here. How would we be able to fund that?
Definitely through a district grant. You can write it in a way that it would definitely touch upon. For example, it sounds just based on the brief description, peace building, conflict resolution would be maybe just one of the areas of focus that it might touch upon. So qualifies as a project that would be eligible to be supported by a district grant or even a global grant. It could be done with a global grant, but you would need to have an international partner, and that's called a reverse grant. But that might be more challenging to be able to get done, but certainly a possibility. Because we were actually looking to do a project, a reverse grant on Maui with the help of Mark Harbison, bless his.
So this would be something our club can propose, like whenever we vote on grants, that could be something that we would propose.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another question.
Yes, sir.
One of the projects that we do on the international level out of the club is we work with a ministry called Hope Haven International. And we distribute wheelchairs throughout the world. But we're able, underneath their insurance policies, they're unable to distribute wheelchairs like in the city. But we can distribute wheelchairs to some of the indigenous reservations we have in South Dakota.
Okay.
And those people, I wonder if we could do some opportunities for us to do wheelchair distributions to some of the indigenous communities here.
Asking about wheelchair distributions to some of the indigenous communities here in Maui or Hawaii in general. I think.
Yeah,
And Maui specifically? Okay.
or wherever.
Wherever, okay.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely something that's being done elsewhere as well. I have a lot of friends who, well, not a lot, but a few friends in California who are very much into wheelchair programs, and they're usually sending them down into Mexico.
Yeah. That would be good. I'm sure there's a lot of people here that can use, I mean, this wheelchairs, and that would be good. Okay.
Hey, Del,
Again,
Chuck
another
Dicker.
district, sorry, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Del, Chuck Dicker, past president.
Aloha.
I love your presentation. Actually, I was at the Lahaina Club as well as this club for presidency, but I know what your speech is all about, and it's wonderful to hear it. I think that our membership doesn't know it all like you do. Even I didn't know all the stuff that, you know, how the stuff comes back to us. Is this is taped, correct?
Yes, it's recorded.
We could send this out to all our membership, right? And
Sure,
that way,
yeah.
you know what I mean? That way, I think everybody could just listen to it at their own time and hear exactly what it all does, because that money does come back to us in so many different ways. And I don't think our club membership knows that. But wonderful presentation, Dal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, okay, I think it's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much. I'm glad, Del, you were able to, we were able to get some extra time for you to give your presentation, because there's a lot of good questions that came out of that too. So, and I learned a lot as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Okay, well, let's go out and imagine ways we can help the community. Thank you, sir.
Okay, aloha. We'll see you guys
Aloha.
later.
Okay.
She wanted to